Hey everybody, we are back for our last week of the series, Be Humble. It's all about how we can reflect Jesus' humility and confidence in our lives. Like we've said, humility simply means freedom from pridefulness or arrogance. And confidence is all about being certain of yourself or something else. What's cool with that is that Jesus modeled both of those for us with the way that he lived. Now, before we really get into it today, I want to start with a little game. I want to show you some items and I want you to try to guess which each of these things is and what they do. Let's go. Number 1, what is this? No, this isn't a save button. This is a floppy disk. This is how people used to save documents and files. Basically, it's how we save things in the cloud today. It had the max capacity of 1.4 megabytes. To put it into perspective, if you were to take one photo on your phone right now, it would be about 2 megabytes. This floppy disk right here couldn't even hold 1 right now. So basically, this is like a raindrop in the cloud. All right, number 2. What do you think this is? It's a tape player. Now, back in the day, you'd have to buy a musician's music on something called a cassette tape and put it into a player just like this one just to listen to their music. There was no way of skipping songs or putting them in a digital playlist or streaming the music anytime you wanted. No, you had to take a physical tape, put it in this, and pop your headphones on and listen to it. Last one, number 3. Listen to this sound. What was that? That was the internet. Or more specifically, it was the dial-up internet. You see, you'd have to wait forever just to get a connection. It was super slow, and the best part about it, not really. You couldn't use the phone while someone was online. It was brutal, crucial. Imagine being a teenager wanting to talk on the phone to your friends while someone's playing on the internet.
You've got mail.
Things are so different today, right? Forget the old dial-up internet or the cassette tape players or floppy disks. Now we've got the world at our fingertips. We have access to everything, it seems, all at once. And all thanks to smartphones. If you have a question, what do? Google it. You're hungry, what do? DoorDash. You need a ride, what do? Uber. Bored? What is it? YouTube. You wanna laugh? TikTok. Want to know what your friends are doing? Snapchat. Trying to binge that show that everyone loves? Netflix. Between social media, games, streaming services, and apps, we've basically been trained to think that we can get what we want when we want it. Patience is a struggle for some of us right now. And if you think about it, very rarely do we have to wait. And when we do, we're definitely not happy about it. We all experience this in other ways in our lives too. We want to do well on our tests, but studying, nah, that ain't for us. We want that part in the play, but memorizing them lines just takes so much time. We want to be a starter on a team, but training to get that spot? Oh, wait, that's way too hard. We want to be better friends, but we say we don't have time to invest in them. Maybe you want to grow in your faith, but it seems like it will take forever to even figure out where to start. Now, hear me when I say this. This isn't a guilt trip because trust me, this isn't just a middle school problem. This is a human problem. We all know how we want to change. We all can probably list a million things that we'd like to do better. We all know we have the potential for more in some areas of our lives. In other words, we all know that we have room to grow. But actually doing the work, putting in the effort, giving the time, well, that's where things get a little bit tricky. Because if we're honest, even if we know what we want to do or areas we want to grow in, we just don't do it. Maybe we don't know where or how to start. Maybe we're afraid that we'll fail. Maybe we don't feel brave enough to do it on our own. Or maybe we're just too overwhelmed to take on one more thing. Like I said, I get it. When I was a middle schooler, or maybe a high schooler, I don't know, some point in my teenage years, I decided to take my relationship with God a little bit more seriously. I really, really wanted this. But it just felt like a lot of work. It felt like something that was unattainable. It just felt like something that just required way more of me than what I wanted to give. So what did I do? I said this: when I get older and I retire, that's when I'll start taking my relationship with God seriously. Why? Because what else is there to do when you get older and retire? But bingo. I mean, I know bingo might be having a comeback, but when I was younger, it was not the jam. So yes, growth is difficult. Yes, it's hard to get started. Yes, waiting for progress takes time. But the reality is, growth matters, not just in our lives, but in our faith. Growth is so important. Staying the same, it doesn't lead to the best version of you. Growth is necessary if we want to become the person God created us to be. And no, I'm not talking about your actual physical growth or your height. You probably have a lot more of that to do. Like we said, Jesus is our best example for how to live in confidence and humility. And that means Jesus is also our best example for what it looks like to grow. So when we're not sure where to start, we can always start with Jesus. Today, we're going to look at an account from Jesus' life that was written down by his friend Matthew. Matthew was one of Jesus' disciples or followers who recorded his time with Jesus. As we jump in here, Jesus was about to begin his ministry. He'd just been baptized and was led into the wilderness to prepare to grow in his faith. However, once he got there, something happened unexpectedly. Let's read. Then Jesus was led by the Spirit into the wilderness to be tempted there by the devil. For 40 days and 40 nights, he fasted and became very hungry. During that time, the devil came and said to him, "If you are the Son of God, tell these stones to become loaves of bread." But Jesus told him, "No, the scriptures say, people do not live by bread alone, but by every word that comes from the mouth of God." It sounds crazy, right? There Jesus was out in the wilderness, fasting and praying to prepare for a start of his ministry. And just like that, he was tempted to give up, to eat, to use his power to turn stones into bread so that he wasn't hungry. And what did Jesus do? Well, probably not what I would have done. You don't want to see me after missing one meal. Let's just say starving for 40 days, I probably would have just jumped at the chance to eat. Get some gravy to go right along with it. But Jesus leaned into growth instead. He trusted that God would provide for him. And even though it was probably hard, Jesus chose humility. He chose to trust. He put his confidence in God, and that helped him grow. What's wild is this happened not once, not twice, but 3 times. Jesus was tempted 3 times again to do different things that would prove that he didn't trust God. Things that would prove that he didn't have what it took to do all God called him to do. Things that meant that his pride and his confidence were in himself and not God alone. And each time, Jesus didn't give in. He chose to stand strong, to let God work in him, to trust that growth was happening in him each time he turned away from temptation. After all that, you know what happened? This. Then the devil went away, and angels came and took care of Jesus. Ooh, that's good. Just like that, God's angels showed up to support and care for Jesus. He wasn't in it alone. They were there to help him every step of the way. Here's what I think is so interesting about this whole thing. As we see through his ministry, Jesus performed so many miracles. He calmed seas. He brought people back from the dead. He fed 5,000 with a few loaves of bread and fish. Y'all, Jesus did it all. So clearly, if he wanted to, he could have done everything in his power to do what the devil was tempting him to do. He could have made it all happen just like that, just to prove that he was who he said he was. But instead, Jesus chose humility. He chose confidence in God. He chose growth. Was it easy? Nah, not at all. Remember, growth, it takes time. It's a process. That's true for all of us, even Jesus. But humility will help us grow. That's where we can start by remembering this. Be growing, be humble. We all want to get better. We're all trying to figure out how to get from where we are to where we want to be. And if you aren't sure how to grow or where to start, or even what you think about this Jesus stuff, I want you to just commit to giving a few things a try this week to help you grow and be humble. First, identify where you want to grow. Think of just one area of your life where you want to see just a little bit of growth or change. Maybe it's in your faith, or your patience, or your grades, or your relationships with your parents. Whatever it is, start by naming just one area you want to work on, growing and changing in your life. Second, don't take the easy road. I know it's tempting to want a quick result, but instead of always looking for an easy road, I want you to commit to choosing the path that leads to growth, even when it's difficult. Remember, the best things take time. In a world of getting what you want when you want it, this seems impossible. But when you choose to trust God, the difficult road gets easier and the time it takes to grow isn't as hard. Third, ask for help. Not only do you have God to give you confidence and direction, but you have friends, you have parents and guardians, your small group and your small group leaders are all there to encourage you and support you as you keep going and keep growing in your life. So remember this, be growing, be humble. As we head to small group now, I want you to think about this question. How do I want to grow in my life right now?